What's up, First Cut fans? We're going live November 23rd. That's a Saturday for 6 hours straight. That's right, 6 hours of uninterrupted live stream. We're going crazy to promote my Indiegogo campaign for urban luxury. And we're going live this time next week with special guests, surprises, appearances, and an exclusive live episode of Real Ones with me and Mr. Marin Knows. Tap in Saturday, November 23rd from 12 p.m. PST to 6 p.m. PST to join in on the live stream.
Speaking of Denzel, apparently the standout of Gladiator II was Denzel. And the only one who's seen Gladiator II from our panel right now is you, Sabrina. So Sabrina, tell us about one of the most anticipated movies of the year. How was Gladiator II?
Well, so since we're on the topic of Denzel, I'm just going to start there. He was absolutely a scene stealer. It's one of those situations where, in the best way possible, by the way, I just want to say, it seems like somebody is in a completely different movie as everybody else because he was having a great time. Like, he was just chewing up every single scene, every line of dialogue, the physical comedy. And then when he has to shift and when it goes all these different directions tonally, because I'm trying to toe a line between, of course, no spoilers, no hinting at anything. But when he has to do that, he completely brings it. So I think without his character or his portrayal of this character, I don't know how much of this film I guess I would have had to be fully fleshed out to really kind of chew on there. But then to go broader with the rest of the film, I really enjoyed it. I think with Gladiator, with Wicked, with something like Conclave, I think we have a lot of films right now that are kind of, paralleling what's happening in our real world. It's really interesting just because these have been in development for so long and they're all getting released right now. But I think the themes were really interesting. I like what Ridley was trying to say. And even looking at the fact that this is a legacy sequel, which Ridley hasn't done. Of course, the Alien franchise has become its own thing. But besides that, a lot of the iconic characters that Ridley has touched, we haven't revisited them in this way. So this film is truly expanding upon Maximus's legacy. And so in the same way, The Force Awakens is kind of not a rehashing necessarily of, the original trilogy or those ideas and themes and Luke Skywalker's journey. We kind of get a lot of that with Paul Mescal's character, Lucius. I know it's talked about in the trailers, so we already know that's his son. I think what brings that from not feeling super redundant is really Paul Mescal's performance. I think he brings a lot of depth. I just wish we had more time to really sit with the character, which feels really interesting to say about a movie that's 2 hours and 20 minutes. But I wanted to sit with him a little bit more. I wanted to feel his progression. I think there's a point in the second act where a lot of things are just kind of sped up. And there's a lot that they're tackling here. It's the pursuit of power from all different types of characters. We have these two emperors that are completely bumbling and absolutely ridiculous, which again, paralleling our real world. And they're just complete buffoons. And then we have a lot of just really strong characters, really strong performances surrounding them. But yeah, Joseph Quinn, I know, of course, he's going to be in Fantastic Four. He did amazing in A Quiet Place, but he was really put onto the map because of Stranger Things. It was such a small character that had a large impact. I think he did really incredible. He showed off a lot of range with this role as well. And then Fred, I think his name is Heschinger, is the other emperor. He was so good. I think Barry Keoghan was supposed to be in that role, and I could tell exactly why. It's kind of just that ridiculous little trickster type of person. So these were all really, really great. Pedro was another one where his performance was phenomenal. This film is genuinely riding off the fact that all of these performances are great. But I just wish we had more time with his character as well. We fully fleshed out what he is in this world, because it is so expansive and all the ideas they're tackling. It's just a lot. But overall, I really, really liked it. I think the weakest part is that screenplay is kind of that pacing issue that they're having there. But besides that, the direction is great. If you watch the original, then you go to this one. I think, honestly, it's a step up for me. I like the original Gladiator. I love A Swords and Sandals epic. It's one of my dad's favorite movies of all time, so he made me watch it a lot when I was a kid. but I think it's the characters like Denzel and so many others, and that there's so many more layers to this story versus the first one that just make it meatier for me and a lot more for me to kind of like enjoy. And then going off of not saying who's what or how this is all going to play out, of course. But there's a character that is fully acting in their like own self-interest. And I think that's really interesting because again, we see that a lot right now in the real world. But they started off at a certain point at the lowest you could possibly be, and they slowly manipulated their way up the ladder. And during that time, they're subjecting other people to the same treatment that they used to receive. And I think that that was one of the most profound kind of character arcs and messages of the story overall. I think that was really, really great. And honestly, a lot of what this film did is what Francis Ford Coppola was trying to do with Megalopolis. You know, all those ideas of unity, vengeance, like all of this kind of stuff, and how like having like an individualistic mindset will not push anything forward. If you're not the person that's getting held back, you're just holding back others. And then they're going to continue to have their own journey and seek revenge along the way. And it just becomes a vicious cycle. So it's kind of like breaking that cycle, coming together. I think it's really good in these times. I think it was really cathartic to watch it like 2 days after the election, when there's just a lot of arguing online. And then I get to see, you know, bloody, sweaty, hot men in like a little coliseum. There's sharks in the coliseum. I don't care about historical inaccuracies. If you're gonna cook like this, I will completely ignore it. I don't care. I wasn't there. I didn't know what it was like in ancient Rome. So yeah.
Sharks. That's crazy. I did not know there were sharks.
Oh, sorry. It's in the trailer.
Okay.
I've heard sharks. I've heard a lot of animals that
I heard rhinos
in the trailers. I'm like, I'd have heard monkeys might be somewhere.
Yo,
like, it's gonna get crazy, man. This is
yo, gorillas.
Yeah.
Yo, Harambe's in
we gorillas end up cool.
That's crazy, bro. That's too much, man. Ridley Scott is on another level.
I did want to hear No Church in the Wild in the movie. Like I was hoping they found some kind of way. If you're already gonna have these historical inaccuracies, you're already gonna have Denzel complete like speaking with like his accent while everybody else is having this like, we are Romans. And then there's Denzel, which I loved. Not for a moment do I ever think that that's like a choice that they shouldn't have made. I'm happy with it. But then put in No Church in the Wild. Yeah. We already have historical inaccuracies. Might as well do it.
Yeah, if anything, they could have done like a Roman, you know, version, like pull out the harp and stuff. Like, yeah, they could have made it saucy. Like they definitely could have done that.
Yeah, that's kind of why I don't want to. When we're talking about Wakanda or the third Black Panther movie and Denzel maybe being a Wakandan, I don't want to see Denzel try to fake an African accent. I just want to see Denzel just straight being Denzel. Like, what you mean, son? Which I can't even. No, I can't even do a Denzel impression. But he's like, yeah, they say he's like Training Day level of like, you know, outrageous in this film. Is that accurate and is
yeah, I would say at this point in his career this is something that's closer along the lines of like a Training Day. It's definitely very different. It's very unique. I think I said this in the beginning, but like I don't think there's a person that could have played this role and given what he did. Like Ridley Scott is so lucky that Denzel was on board for this. I don't know what that process was like, if he auditioned, if he got reached out to, whatever. But Ridley Scott is so lucky because he is one of the most interesting characters. He has the most interesting performance. But Paul, it's so funny because Paul's one of my favorite actors working today. And I haven't even said enough about his performance, to be honest. He is so good. He is so good. I know, of course, like he's known for like After Sun, Normal People, All of Us Strangers. So a lot of these like sad boy roles. But he completely ditches that. And honestly, I know we're kind of in an era where we don't really have any action stars, and I wouldn't call him an action star by any means. But for somebody who's in theater and in so many roles that he's kind of like gone across all emotions but not touched something like this, he did absolutely phenomenal. I really can't think of another young actor that could have stepped into this one and brought the depth and all the layers that he did. He's no Russell Crowe by any means, but like who is, again, these action stars just don't exist. They're all like, it's like the Tom Cruise, the Russell Crowes, like all of them are kind of, you know, they're out of this generation where they could play a character like this. But yeah, it also really reminds me, which I loved, it reminded me of like a mid 2000s action movie. Like it feels like this genuinely could have come out then. It kind of has some of those like cheesier, campier moments, but it works so well somehow. So this is not like a knock to it all. Even like the screener, like you know when we go to screenings and they have the little like banner on the screen at first before the movie starts. Even that banner looked like it was like one of those DVD menus from the mid 2000s. Like I feel like they really knew kind of what they were doing with this one in that way. It feels very nostalgic, feels very timeless. And yeah, great double feature with the first one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like that's one thing that we know and trust in Ridley Scott, that he's going to give us great action. If anyone has seen, obviously, any of his movies, but especially his most recent one, The Last Duel, that final fight scene, I can't talk enough about it. I feel like it's one of the best fight scenes that we've seen in recent years. So I don't distrust that we get an amazing action movie, Sabrina.
But by the way, that wasn't his last movie. You know?
It wasn't. No.
Napoleon.
One of his most recent. My bad. But the fact that that's an action scene that I just thought was incredible. But thematically, story-wise, Sabrina, I know you mentioned that that might be the weakest part, but do you feel like he does have something to say, and it is something that's thematically relevant, that you feel like is there and it's focused and you can feel it throughout the film?
100%. When I was talking about the screenplay, it was more so like just not fleshing out the characters enough. I think the themes are very much so present. I think those are done very well. I did speak to somebody about what I was talking about earlier with one of the characters, where they're perpetuating the same misfortune that they've experienced, and now that they're out of it, they just keep going. And that person actually didn't pick up on it, and it's also a fellow critic. So maybe it's just like me really diving into something and really paying attention to all the little nuances that are happening in a scene. But yeah, I think for me, all of that was really successful. I know it's kind of difficult to have a movie that's like, oh, let's all come together, let's unite, without it being cheesy. And it never felt cheesy in that way for me. I just, again, with some of the characters, with some, especially Paul Mescal's character, I just wanted to see more growth throughout the film. I feel like the second act kind of like, it drags a little bit, just because there are things that we're looking to see that kind of end up just happening. So that's kind of its downfall there. But I think overall still like a 8.5 out of 10. It could potentially be a 9 on a rewatch. So Ridley's cooking, in my opinion. Like I'm not, yeah.
Those are big numbers. Those are amazing numbers. I cannot be more hyped. Holy smoly. Now, one more question from me, at least, you know, because I've been following, I love the original Gladiator, you know, and I've been following the development. I mean, I know, I mean, I'm sure all of us do, you know, Hollywood does. But I've been following the development of Gladiator 2 for a minute. There's been a script that has gone online that is about, you know, Russell Crowe's character coming back from the dead, trying to kill Jesus Christ, you know, and ends up serving a Vietnam War. It's a long-winded story, but is there any elements that just seem like does this feel more in line with if you, for example, my girlfriend's gonna be watching Gladiator. She's never seen Gladiator 1, so we're gonna be watching Gladiator 1 this weekend and then Gladiator 2 the next weekend. Does it feel like a good companion piece, or like, you know? Yeah, does it feel like a companion piece?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know what nonsense you're talking about right now.
Yeah, I was like, where's this question going?
No, I mean,
I believe you.
Does Jesus show up and beat some ass?
Yeah.
Jesus he falls from the heavens. He gets a sword, and he's like, "I'm here now, boys."
Yeah,
that's
right.
Absurd.
Yeah, I think it was called like Christ Killer or something like that. Russell Crowe was on board. Yeah, it was interesting.
Bro, you're making stuff up now.
No, I'm not. You can go on the Gladiator 2 Wikipedia page right now. Bro. No, bro, you can literally go on the Gladiator 2 Wikipedia page right now at this moment. They don't say the same thing, but I've been following this for a cool minute. But no, okay, I'm glad. Like, okay, because that was what I was worried about. I was like, it's not gonna be some fantasy, You know,
No, 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 no. It's very much so like I kind of even like touched on it a little bit where at times or like on paper this could seem like just a rehashing of the first, but there are so many added layers. The performances are so much better. There's also just a lot more characters that you're juggling with this film versus like the last one, of course. It's like Joaquin, it's Russell Crowe, the girlfriend, whatever the situation was over there. Yeah, there's so much more to chew on here, but it is very in line with that similar type of story, you know, like seeking vengeance, pursuit of power with the villains, all of that kind of stuff. And his legacy is 100% like all a part of this one, you know?
I'm hyped.
I think the next question we have now, Sabrina, is looking forward to RB3. You got to say it. What's Wicked and Gladiator coming out the same weekend?
We getting Gladict.
All right, Gladiator, it's happening next week. Sabrina, how are you feeling about these two movies who are both getting a lot of hype? Like Wicked is getting crazy hype. Coming out the same date, are we going to have another Barbenheimer, or not quite as at that level, but are we going to have like a November version of it? You know, maybe even half of that, because if it's half, that's still really good. Do you feel like we can reach that level?
I definitely think so. I think there's a lot of hype on both sides. It's kind of like Oppenheimer and Barbie were so different from each other, but then, you know, there's just that area, like the Venn diagram where like the film fans are into both. And I think this is another example of that. You know, for Wicked, we have Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, people who have made a name for themselves and have kind of like a huge fandom around them. And then with Gladiator, I think what's really like the selling point there is, of course, being a sequel to the first Gladiator film. Ridley Scott, for better or for worse. I know even like looking at his last few of his films with like House of Gucci, Napoleon, Last Duel, it's so interesting how much he's been working over the last few years, like how many stories he's brought us. And I think out of all of those, in my opinion, I haven't seen The Last Duel though, so maybe that beats it. But out of all of those, to me, this one's easily the best. So yeah, I think the Venn diagram will happen again. I think if you're a fan of just like art, entertainment, all the above, I think you'll enjoy both of those. And I do think they're probably going to be pretty domestically. I think Wicked's going to end up taking the win for sure. Obviously, again, Ariana Grande, like she was like person of the year or whatever in like 2019. Her music was all over the place. Thank You Next and that whole album after the Sweetener era. I loved those two albums, by the way. They're great.
Yeah, for real.
And like we can have social reactions out for Wicked right now, so I can't do a full review, but like she was phenomenal. And so people are saying like she's absolutely incredible. She's literally I would be shocked if she didn't get, I mean, I think she for sure secured a supporting actress nomination.
Really?
Wow.
100% secured.
Wow.
I'd be kind of shocked if she didn't win. I'm not gonna lie. I know we have a lot of performances that are coming down the pipeline for the rest of the year. I would be so shocked. And same thing with Cynthia Erivo. I think she's getting that nomination for actress, like
lead actress. Oh.
Yeah, because they submitted her for lead and then Ariana for supporting.
That's big hype. I mean, gosh, doggedly dig. I'm like super excited now. Like,
yeah, because I see Cynthia. Like if someone told me Cynthia Erivo is like Oscar worthy or Oscar nominated, I'd be like, all right, but Ariana, are you sure?
I'm not gonna lie. The longer trailer that they showed at CinemaCon did kind of show like, oh shoot, she got some acting like in there, you know.
Is she really?
I'm not even gonna lie, I have literally full body chills thinking about Ariana Grande's performance.
Wow.
Like she is so insane. She was perfect for this role. I know they've talked about like Amanda Seyfried, Dove Cameron, a bunch of other people that were up for Glinda. I understand entirely. Not just like it's not stunt casting, because obviously that happens a lot like on Broadway. You know, they pull in pop star or something like that to play a certain role. This is not stunt casting. This is like she was literally meant for this. She's like a little Lucille Ball-esque type of person. So much physical comedy. Her line delivery is incredible. Obviously, her vocals are great. So yeah, I think Wicked, all that to say, Wicked domestically, I think is going to take the W. I think Gladiator won't be too far behind, but I do think it's kind of a disservice that we had such a quiet November. And then these two films are coming out the same weekend because for those that can't sit there in a theater for however many hours or buy two movie tickets or whatever it may be, it's like you have to choose between one of them. And I feel like a lot of people are going to go Wicked, which makes sense because it's so uplifting, so crowd pleasing. The energy is just through the roof. So yeah, talking about Wicked in more detail next week.
Right.
Is it PG-13?
I think it's PG, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, yeah, then they have the kids too then.
Exactly.
I did have one more question though, Sabrina, but before we moved on from Gladiator 2, there are folks out there saying that Gladiator 2 is a potential Best Picture contender and also a front runner for Ridley Scott to win Best Director. Do you think is that kind of level right now? At least according to Variety. Variety, shout out Clayton Davis who does the Variety predictions.
I can see a world, but I don't necessarily think a Best Director nomination is going to come just from this film itself. I think it's going to come more so like his whole legacy as well. I think some of that Gladiator energy from the first one is really doing like heavy lifting. I mean, he did really great. And so I could see that. Best Picture, I mean, I could also see. I feel like this is one of those safe Oscar choices. And as far as safe Oscar choices go, like the Green Books or whatever it may be, this is definitely way more quality than most. So I could see something like this. I really want to see challengers get love. So if I had to choose between like Luca or like a Ridley, like a more interesting choice, I would always choose like a Luca any day of the week. The Substance I want to see. I know it's not going to get anything, but I'd love to see The Substance up there. So yeah, I guess it's tough, but there's definitely a world where that is more than possible, considering that Ridley is already such a celebrated filmmaker, and this film is definitely like awards level story and film, and just the whole like period piece and all that kind of stuff.